Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined, as always, by my partner in everything Packers, Wes Hodkiewicz, coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field to discuss, Wes, a 27-23 victory in the desert over the Arizona Cardinals. It wasn't pretty by any stretch, but as I wrote at the very beginning of my game recap after getting on the bus for that long ride to the airport out there, going from Glendale to the stadium in Glendale to the airport in Phoenix, this game was all about which team executed at crunch time. And in this game, that was the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, it was funny. Okay, so you and I were sitting there at the press conference on Monday morning. So a lot of the media are still coming back. Bill Huber's there with us, Jason Wilde, two credentialed journalists who do not travel. So they were able to be there for the press conference while a lot of the other beat corps were still on their way back from Arizona. And it was funny listening. We all kind of were just filibustering and talking amongst ourselves about, like, there's so much that happened in this game, you couldn't really cover all of it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's the NFL. There's a lot of variables. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of situations. I thought you did a great job, with one of your game stories, kind of like really zeroing in on that, fourth down conversion. I mean, that might end up going down as one of the biggest plays of the Packers season. But I was just sitting there thinking to myself, like, Lucas Havrisik, 61-yard field goal, franchise record, critical time, kind of gave them some juice back a little bit at a time in which they needed it. Micah Parsons has these 3 sacks and 2 of them in the fourth quarter, 4 pressures in the fourth quarter, has one of the best games of his career, was a nuisance for all 4 quarters for Arizona to deal with, and they were trying to match up with him one-on-one. But then you think about it and you're like, well, Rashawn Gary had the strip sack that allowed the Packers to turn the tide, a 10-point swing.
Packers' first takeaway since week 3.
Yes. And ends up becoming a Josh Jacobs touchdown. Josh Jacobs scores 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs had a calf injury that developed on Friday. Didn't know whether he was going to play. It was a game time decision. The Packers end up having a situation where their plane doesn't leave at the right time. So then they're delayed back in Green Bay and they get in late and Josh Jacobs has to cancel plans with his family. And the list goes on and on and on of stuff that happened. But to your intro to me is what mattered the most. Yeah. And that's when the Packers needed to win the football game. Wasn't perfect first 3 quarters, but the defense, after struggling to keep teams out of the end zone the last few weeks, had some big stops. And offensively, I mean, Jordan Love has just been nails, man. I mean, when they've needed big moments, like that fourth down pass to Tucker Kraft for 15 yards, that's where the game was decided. Love, LaFleur, this team, they trusted in each other. They picked up their 4th win of the season. It
was quite the sequence there down the stretch because the Cardinals had taken a 23-20 lead. The Packers' offense had stalled out. They had to punt. It was on the defense at that point to get the ball back, to not allow it to become a 2-score game. And it came down to a 4th and 1. Right near midfield, the Cardinals decided to go for it. Not a huge surprise the way the game is played these days. I still thought maybe just because of how they had drawn the Packers offside a couple of times during the game that maybe they were going to bluff and see if they could just get the free 5 yards on the 4th and 1. But they tried the sneak with Jacoby Brissett, got stuffed, gave the short field to the Packers. The 4th and 2, the Packers had lost a yard on a 3rd and 1, and Matt LaFleur explained on Monday it was going backwards there from 3rd and 1 to 4th and 2 that initially he's like, all right, I'm just going to kick the field goal. And then he saw the look on Jordan Love's face, called a timeout to reconsider, think about it a little bit more, like, all right, nope, let's go for the first down. You mentioned it's the pass to Kraft, who's actually the 3rd option on the play. Yeah. It was a kind of a bunch formation to the left. 3 receivers, 3 different routes. You got an out to the sticks, you got a pivot inside to the sticks, and then you've got Kraft on the corner route, which is really the only downfield route of the combination, and he's the 3rd option on the play. Love sees the other 2 guys are covered. He's got to put it out there for Kraft. He makes the catch, gets the feet in bounds, and then Josh Jacobs finishes the deal. 3 straight runs, punches it into the end zone. And then the defense then with a 4-point lead, as opposed to if the Packers had kicked and tied the game, the defense would have had to stop the Cardinals from getting a field goal. They had the whole field to defend. The Packers were up by 4. Cardinals needed to get a touchdown. Sure enough, the Cardinals got into field goal range, but Micah Parsons' 3rd sack of the game comes at a big time, sets them up in tough down and distance. It eventually becomes a 4th and 10, 4th and 11 situation and a heave to the end zone, which was, I didn't realize this at the time because it was in the end zone that was opposite of the press box, but the pass was actually caught. It was just caught out the back of the end zone, well out of bounds. Crunch time, I said this in Insider Inbox, and there's a lot to cover from this game, as you mentioned. But in the NFL, where the margins are so slim, failing in crunch time can undo a lot of good football.
Yep.
And succeeding in crunch time can cover up for some bad football. And at the end of the day, it's about getting wins. LaFleur said it himself on Monday. This is a results-oriented business. The only thing anybody cares about is whether you win or lose the game at the end of the day. And this was one to me, it felt like the Packers, quite frankly, escaped Arizona because they had trailed for most of the game, and things did not look good until that 4th and 1 stop on the quarterback sneak.
I'm glad it went down the way it did, though, because we saw in Cleveland where they kind of controlled that game against the Browns the entire time, but then had it slip away from them in the waning moments.
Exactly.
Almost the same spot that the Cardinals were in with this game, with a few more points put on the board. This time, Green Bay had to play the role of the comeback. And I'll tell you what, Mike, when it was 13-3, that kind of felt a little, I don't want to say insurmountable, but it was getting to be a dire strait there, because it's like, okay, well, this offense with Jacoby Brissett, which just had 320 passing yards the previous week,
right.
Well, now he is clicking with Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison has a little bit of scare there with an incomplete pass, but then he's making explosive plays. And Marvin Harrison, man, there's a couple mental, concentration things he has to get sorted out. But when that guy figures it all out, it's going to be a real problem for this league, just like he was in college. I mean, his talent is limitless, needless to say. So Arizona, who's had a litany of different running backs, they're on their backup quarterback. Things are really trending in the opposite, in the wrong direction. And in my opinion, I felt like, not to jump into some of the stuff I'm sure you want to talk about, for Green Bay to make a gutsy call there, especially after everything that happened with Dallas last month, to try to get one play with one timeout left to give yourself a shot at a field goal, that was the turning point in that game. Romeo Doubs, that's the guy for Jordan Love. Gets 22 yards there, just enough room for Lucas Havrisik and that unit to go out there. And as Havrisik was talking to me about in the locker room afterwards, he didn't have a great pregame. He wasn't feeling awesome. But as he said, sometimes you just have to focus and you have to put everything away from and just be like all the reps, all the time that you've put into this thing. And the guy went out there and hit a field goal about as solid as you can hit one.
Yeah.
And the Packers go into the halftime down only by 1 score.
Yeah, I mean, I even thought after the completion to Dobbs there and the timeout, there's 1 second on the clock, I thought, now they'll just try a Hail Mary. I mean, I didn't think, a substitute kicker, that you're going to try a 61-yarder. And it wasn't one of those where it wasn't one of those long kicks where it's like low trajectory and maybe flutters a little bit and somehow just clears the crossbar. I mean, it was the right type of trajectory of the kick and everything, and he just nailed it.
It looked like a kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, it was really impressive. He gets the franchise record there, 3 yards longer than any field goal in franchise history. Mason Crosby's 58-yarder at the Metrodome in 2011 against the Vikings was the previous franchise record. Hats off to Havrisik. As you said earlier, I thought it did give the Packers a little bit of juice, and it didn't result in an immediate change at the start of the second half because the Packers offense stalled out again and punted the ball. But the defense then on the opening possession for the Cardinals of the second half, Rashawn Gary gets the strip sack. Colby Wooden gets the pressure up the middle, which then, Brissett adjusts himself in the pocket, and then Gary's coming at him and knocks the ball out. Evan Williams recovers a short field there, 44 yards, and a Packers offense that was just struggling. Suddenly just takes 4 plays, 44 yards in the end zone. And the combination of that with the 3 points on the 61-yarder at the end of the first half, the 13-3 deficit's erased. It's 13-13. It's a brand new ball game. You've got most of the second half left to go, and at that point, it's like, all right, here we go. Who's going to take this thing?
For sure, and I'm glad you mentioned the Wooden thing too, because Micah Parsons went out of his way to praise Colby Wooden after the game for not only the play that you mentioned there, but some of the stuff that he set up for Parsons as well. Colby had probably, right along with the Lions game, probably his best game of the season inside, both against the run and also getting some push. That's what they've missed with Devontae White, is being able to collapse that pocket a little bit. And against quarterbacks that want to stand in there and get the ball out quick, that's really what you need most, even more than edge rushers at that point. So, that being said, the Packers have shown an affinity in this early part of the season to get out of the blocks quick for the most part in the second half. That has been probably the hallmark of this team, the biggest complementary phase of football that they've played. Is their ability to, when the defense is giving up some points, the offense responds. When the offense has struggled to get going, it's the defense that's keeping them in it. And in this particular case, I thought it was the best example of both sides picking each other up. Because once again, Josh Jacobs did get going. Now, for people, I kind of breezed right through that, but the situation on Friday was he ends up tweaking his calf, in practice. It was a full participant, but it was something he had coming out of practice. And he's really, it was touch and go whether or not he was going to be able to play in this thing.
Yeah.
Compounded by the fact that Green Bay does have a mechanical issue getting out. So they're waiting out in Green Bay for about 5 hours. He said, he was stretching the best he could. He was walking around. He had a sleeve on it. It is just a nightmare scenario for a running back to be going through this and not being able to get treatment, not being able to get into your rhythm.
And then knowing you have a 3.5-hour flight, you've got to sit there in an airplane seat, before then you can get to the hotel and get another round of treatment to see if you can play the next day. I mean, you're right. It's an absolute nightmare scenario from an injury standpoint.
Yeah, and he said, he ended up going out for the pregame warm-up, and he credited the Packers training staff. He credited the coaches. He was thankful for how much they are trying to protect him. But he did say, he's like, I know my body. I've been through this before. He tweaked his calf before in a game in 2022. I believe it was before they played Seattle when he was with the Raiders. The guy ends up going off for 303 yards from scrimmage in that game. So he felt confident that if he could get himself mentally to a certain point, he was going to be able to do it. The Packers still were somewhat cautious with him. It's why you only saw him take, I think it was 10 snaps in the first half. You saw a lot of Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks involvement. But when the game was on the line, they turned back to their running back. And I loved Matt LaFleur's comment. This is zipping ahead a little bit, but the two back-to-back runs that ultimately end up putting the Packers in the lead for the first time all day, LaFleur even quipped, while the offensive line had a pretty solid day overall, not sure if they blocked anybody on those particular plays. The 7-yard run will not go down in any NFL films highlight reels of Josh Jacobs, but I thought that play in specific really epitomized what he's been in Green Bay, and that is when something's not there, he makes something happen.
Yeah. And
he pulled 7 yards out of nowhere to then put himself in a position from the 1 yard line to punch that thing in, put Green Bay up with $150 left. And as LaFleur said afterwards, the Packers do not win this game without Josh Jacobs. He came to play.
Yeah, and if you want to get a sense of just the type of competitor and passionate individual that Josh Jacobs is, take a look on Packers.com at the locker room speech after the game, because this wasn't a locker room speech that was just about Matt LaFleur giving out game balls, and which he did to Lucas Havrisik and to Micah Parsons and to Josh Jacobs. But look at what Jacobs has to say, and look at how he says it. And then take a look at what Tucker Kraft has to say. You're talking about a third-year tight end who's coming into his own, makes the clutch catch on fourth down, and the leadership that you're seeing from a young guy like Tucker Kraft and what he means to that locker room. I mean, it gives you a sense, just watching that video. It's just a couple minutes long, but it gives you a sense of the humans that are in that locker room, that they aren't just They aren't just football players. And for as ugly as this game was at times, that win meant a lot to those guys.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because I got a little bit of salt and pepper in my hair at this point. You know, I got a couple of years under my belt, and one of the things that's been eye-opening for me the last 2 seasons is much similar to probably like what you experienced in 09 and 10 and 11 is you're starting to see guys. I had a whole 10 years on the beat before Tucker Kraft came into town, a whole 13 years on the beat before Josh Jacobs got signed. I saw Mercedes Lewis in that locker room, Julius Peppers in that locker room, guys that were the leaders back then. What I never experienced was, for the most part, the young guys then picking up those torches.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing now. That's why Josh Jacobs is wearing a C. That's why Tucker Kraft has that C on his chest. And when you see guys get drafted and then a different era, a different generation of Packer players begins, it's special to watch. And I'm sure you're going to want to get into it a little bit too, but I want to say this. I mean, the way that Micah Parsons has brought himself into this locker room now and integrated himself with his teammates. And the fact that this guy's been here for not even 2 months. Yes, he made a lot of plays, but seeing the way that Xavier McKinney reacted to him. So in the middle of Parsons' media scrum with, Xavier McKinney's coming over and hooting and hollering at him. You have all these guys that are embracing him.
Yeah.
That's where that culture comes from. That when a new guy, doesn't matter if you're a superstar, doesn't matter if you're an undrafted free agent, when that guy comes into the fold, there is an opening and in just open arms around that individual. That's what culture is.
Yeah.
And that's where the Packers are at.
Yeah, and it's definitely played a factor for Green Bay this year. I do want to say, in addition, with regard to Parsons, because there were a lot of people, I don't know, call them the skeptics or the haters or whatever, but Parsons' first game, he gets his first sack against the Detroit Lions, but then, there's all these folks out there, it was garbage time, the game had been put away, that's all you're going to get for your $188 million. Well, Micah Parsons got a sack of Dak Prescott in overtime that saved a tie, turned what could have been a loss in helping to get a tie there for the Packers. In this game in Arizona, he gets 2 third-down sacks in the red zone that force field goals. Those are 4-point plays. That's Micah Parsons taking 8 points off the board. And then he gets the third sack in crunch time, the final drive, when the Cardinals are knocking on the door to the red zone. They're not quite there yet. But on first down, he buries Brissett, puts him in the long yardage situation, and then ultimately it becomes the turnover on downs with the 4th down heave to the end zone out the back. Micah Parsons, I'm not sure why the Cardinals decided to try to block him the way that they did, but man, he made plays in the biggest moments of this game, and not players like that. You can't do that every single week. That's not how the league works. But when you do it in a game like this, like Micah Parsons did, that's why Micah Parsons gets the contract that he gets, because it's games like this that you don't get the win without those plays that he made.
Yep.
Bottom line.
Yeah. I take a little bit different viewpoint about how the Cardinals defended him, or I guess it'd be the offense defending the defender player, but how they matched up with him. I have no problem with the fact that they tried to go one-on-one with him early on. I honestly respect it. I think that's the way this game is played. I think it is trying to figure out, hey, can Paris Johnson handle this guy? And that's your best on best. If your left tackle can take care of him, the Packers won a lot of football games over the years by David Bakhtiari doing that sort of thing. What surprised me is he was giving them all sorts of problems for the first 3 quarters. I am stunned with their approach to him in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
That's where I would have thought you would have had the added attention. Now, you got to remember, I don't know how much 2 tight end they operate in. Trey McBride is basically out on every single route. He might chip here and there, but he's not staying in as an inline blocker. And it is what it is. But what I loved about Parsons in this game, and I'm telling you, man, I got home next day, I'm sitting down with my dad eating some food, and we're kind of breaking down the game a little bit. And I said to him, I'm like, this is the best defensive player I've covered. I didn't get Charles Woodson during NFL Defensive Player of the Year like you did. I didn't get Clay Matthews the first 2 seasons like you did. Since 2012, this is the most impactful player I've witnessed because it's all over the place. I mean, Za'Darius Smith had some great moments. Clay Matthews was phenomenal at times. Phenomenal a lot, but I mean, like, dominant at times. Julius Peppers brought something in the mid-2000s. Micah Parsons is one of the elite. And when you watch that guy play snap after snap, down after down, it is incredible. I don't know if you saw the statistic, Michael, but right now, and I think it's through NFL GSIS or in Next Gen Stats, but Parsons is on pace for over 100 pressures this season. And if I saw the statistic right, last year Rashawn Gary led the Packers with 49. Micah's almost at 40 already. The sacks, the relentlessness, I think he's been much better against the run than people give him credit for.
Yep.
I think he's been tenacious. I think he's been really gap sound when the instances that he's been put in that position. Oh, and then, by the way, they were down Lucas Van Ness in this game, and yet they still had 12 quarterback hits. They still had 6 sacks. Kingsley Enagbari played a whale of a football game. The Packers, when you talk about guys that are bringing out the best, not only in themselves but the rest of the squad, Micah Parsons is that dude. And I am so excited to see where this season goes for him. Him and Rashawn Gary now both at 5.5 sacks on the year. I felt like that game in itself was something Green Bay's defense can really build on, even though there were plenty of things to clean up, throughout.
Yeah, I was asked about Parsons in the Insider Inbox, and the answer that I wrote on the plane flight on the way back was that he's the most relentless defensive player that I've ever covered. And that's saying something because I don't want to take anything away from Clay Matthews, because when Clay Matthews was in his heyday, he was awfully relentless as a pass rusher. But I think Micah Parsons is another step above that, and that's saying something. A couple things to touch on, though, and these are, I guess I would say, the areas to clean up for the Packers. The penalties were an issue in this game. Micah Parsons was guilty of a couple of them. I know we don't have time to go into the whole hip drop tackle thing, but he also jumped offside for like the 3rd or 4th time or whatever this year. So he's got some stuff to work on. The offense had the pre-snap penalties. So the penalties are definitely an issue. What really hurt the defense in this game was the 3rd and longs.
Yeah, they got burned.
I mean, the 3rd and 23 was a combination in the sense of Baron Sorrell, the rookie, jumps offside. Jacoby Brissett sees the flag and knows he's got a free play on 3rd and 23, so he just chucks it, down the field. Evan Williams can't quite get over there in time to break up the deep ball, and it gets caught for a 43-yard gain, so you give up a 3rd and 23. But you gave that up in part because you gave the quarterback a free play. He was able to take the deep shot downfield. Later in the game, a 3rd and 14. I mean, that's for the way the Packers defense has played, and particularly on 3rd down this season, these types of plays are the highest percentage that you get for Green Bay's defense. But we heard from Matt LaFleur on Monday, is a zone defense that was called, but Nate Hobbs was playing press man, so there was some sort of a miscommunication there. He gets attacked as the press man corner, but the rest of the secondary is not in that type of coverage, and so you end up giving up a 3rd and 14. That one, as well as the 3rd and 23 in the first half, both lead to touchdowns for the Cardinals. My point in saying all this, but what gets frustrating is it's sort of repeating some points along the way, but it is clear and obvious the plays that are there that the Packers defense needs to make. So when this defense is struggling, I don't think it's that far off, because they shouldn't be giving up a 3rd and 23. They shouldn't be giving up a 3rd and 14, but they've got to start making those plays, and then this defense can get back to looking like the unit that it was in the first couple weeks of the season. So I know there's frustration out there, and the players themselves. We heard from Xavier McKinney after the game. He's not happy with how the defense played in this game. They know they can play better. They know that they need to play better. But to me it's not something where they're just like way off. It's about certain instances, situational football, where they need to hold their water at the line of scrimmage and then execute the call and have everybody on the same page to execute that call. And I think this defense gets back to where it was.
Yeah, I think what's fun for me, and I know everybody, especially the critics of the Wes Hodquits insider inboxes, will say it's being way too, rose-colored glasses and sunny side up here. But I'll tell you what, when you talk about defenses that struggled, it's given up 500 passing yards to Phillip Rivers, right? It's Adrian Peterson running all over you. It's Colin Kaepernick having an all-time day in a playoff game, right?
Right.
So that's why I take things with a grain of salt. What I love about this defense is, and I wrote about this in the column on Tuesday, it's a good defense. It's a very good defense. They're 6th in total yards. They're 1st in passing yards allowed per pass play. They're 1st against the run. They're pretty good in all the situational phases of the game. But this group wants to be iconic. They want to be legendary. And that's what they're trying to work towards.
Right.
It's so much different when you're trying to do that as opposed to, hey, how do we prevent the opposing quarterback from throwing 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against us? That's not the problem right now.
Right.
It's how can we go from being a good defense to being exceptional? That's the exciting part about it. You're absolutely right, though. There's things they got to clean up. I would like to say this, and I know we only have so much time. Hannah's got to get to lunch at some point. I want everybody to be able to go about their day. But just to touch on the hip drop tackle really quick, because you had to edit this in Insider Inbox, and I would love to hear your take on it. I did a lot of research on the hip drop tackle. I was at the owners' meetings when it all got approved and everything. My original belief, and maybe you watch a lot more outside football than I do, I have not seen it called yet in terms of a flag. My original belief when the league originally sold this was much like the crown of the helmet rule with running backs, is we are going to we want to make the game safer. That's why the rule's there. It should absolutely be there. But you can't make it a flaggable offense or a finable offense without making it a flaggable offense. So they were trying to catch it on review. My understanding of the rule was that this is something to prohibit the ball carriers downfield from being susceptible, or a scrambling quarterback from being susceptible. If I've never seen it called at all, I've never seen it happen within the pocket when a quarterback's in the process of getting sacked.
Okay. No, and I hear what you're saying there.
And I'm happy to be wrong here, but this is why
I hear what you're saying, and I need to look at the play again. When I saw the replay and I saw the way Parsons tackled Brissett, I thought, yeah, that pretty much looks like the definition of the hip drop tackle. I understand why they threw the flag. For me, I thought Brissett was kind of scrambling and had gotten out of the pocket.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's why they threw the flag. Now, it is the first time I've seen it thrown in a live game, and I've heard other comments that this is only the second time, basically over the last 2 years since they implemented this rule. It's only the second time that it has been flagged during a game. What I remember hearing from the league is that the league was essentially sending a message that they were fine with adjudicating this with the fines after the fact. They laid out all of the specific criteria.
They did.
And what they want the officials on the field to be absolutely 100% sure that is what they see if they're going to throw the flag in the game, because they don't have a mechanism, which I think is where the flaw is in the rule. They don't have the mechanism within the rules to look at it afterwards and decide, okay, if they threw the flag, can they pick it up and say no, it's not, right? So that's why it's been called very, very rarely. And we'll see if we hear later in the week if Micah Parsons does get a fine for it. I looked at one replay in the press box at the time that it happened, and my initial reaction was, yeah, I kind of get it. I can see why he threw the flag there.
I just can't believe they saw it, to be honest with you.
No, and it's true, because it wasn't a scramble way out into the open field or anything, but I thought he was kind of scrambling up the middle and had kind of gotten out of the pocket, and that's why the flag. It's a tough one. It's a tough one for defensive players, but it's really a matter of, as a defensive player, you have to train yourself, I think now, in order to avoid this, that if you're grabbing onto somebody from behind, you have to keep your own legs.
You can't get weightless.
Back.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't, you can't think of a tackle as trying to grab somebody and pull them back, because to pull them back, you have to lift your own legs and as you say, become weightless, and then that's what's going to lead to the violation, as opposed to, it's almost more like you have to grab and hang on, and try to drag him down that way. But anyway, interesting discussion, and we'll see what happens if on the film review, if Parsons does indeed get a fine and the league confirms that the call in the field was right, or perhaps not. But we do have some bills to pay, so we better get to that, and let's now hear from our sponsors. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Hey Packers fans, we always knew Lambeau Field was a wonder, but now it's official. Learn more about all the wonders of Wisconsin at travelwisconsin.com/wonders. Welcome back to Packers Unscripted. Last thing before we go, Wes, is just looking at the NFC as a whole right now. There are 6 teams in the NFC at 5-2. 6 of them are at 5-2. And because of A, a scheduling quirk that gave the Packers an early bye, and B, the rarity of an overtime tie, the Packers are the only team in the NFC with just one loss, with the 4-1-1 record. But I'm telling you, this is already shaping up. And I know we're going to talk all about the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers in this next matchup on our next show. And we're only in the middle of October here. But this is already shaping up into a situation where there are going to be some good teams in the NFC that will not be able to crack that top 7 and get into the postseason. That's the way this is looking. Now, obviously, anything can change. Injuries and all that will affect lots of teams moving forward, all that kind of stuff. But, man, a 4-1-1 team and then 6 teams at 5-2 all in the same conference.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
It's crazy they're mostly coming out of 2 divisions too, right? Like the North and the West are, again, going to be just meat grinders, right? You're going to get a champion from the East. Potentially here it'll look like it'll be Philly. You're going to get a champion from the South. It's definitely looking like it's going to be Tampa. But my goodness, this race in those other 2 divisions is going to be wild to watch. I mean, the Bears took care of business against the Saints. They did exactly what a good football team should do against a bad football team.
And the Bears are the team that's right below all the 5-2 teams because they're at 4-2 because they've also had an early bye. Yeah,
and then you look at how this is unfolded in so many different ways. It's just hilarious where, certainly the Cowboys just went and gave it to the Washington Commanders at the same time. So they go to 3-3-1. The same time, the Carolina Panthers have one of the most wacky games that you're going to see against a winless Jets team in which they lose Bryce Young. So Andy Dalton has to finish that game.
Yeah.
It just shows you we focus so much on, it wasn't the prettiest win. The scratching and clawing that has happened in the NFL so far this season for victories. There have been so few examples of like the Kansas City Chiefs just destroying the Las Vegas Raiders.
Right.
Most of these games have been so down to the wire. You look at what happened with Denver. I mean, the ending of that game against the Giants,
man. The Broncos scored 33 points in the fourth quarter when they entered the fourth quarter with 0, which is an NFL record for a team that was shut out through 3 quarters to put up 33 in the fourth and get the win, mostly thanks to the Giants kicker missing a couple of extra points in that game. I mean, just
and that
crazy stuff. Here's the other thing I'll throw out there when we're talking about scheduling quirks and whatnot. Though.
Yeah.
So one of these 6 5-2 teams in the NFC is the Los Angeles Rams, and I think the Rams are, their defense is good. Stafford and Devontae Adams, and what they're doing on offense, they seem to be getting it going. The Los Angeles Rams are 5-0 against the AFC and 0-2 against the NFC, and now all they have left after their bye week, coming back from London, all they have left are NFC opponents the rest of the season. Because they played 5 games against AFC teams, and they've won them all. So that's how they got they're at 5-2. There's weird stuff going on. It's weird, and there's all these things that are going to be sorted out over the next, I mean, what is this going to be, 2.5 months roughly before the end of the regular season? All kinds of stuff to be sorted out, but man, this looks like this just looks nuts right now.
And you go over to the AFC, and the Colts are just beating the Chargers, and they're at 6 wins already. I wonder how many people had the Colts for 6 or fewer wins on the season.
Right.
And now they're off to the start that they're off to. It's fun, man. It's a fun game. It's a week-to-week league. Philadelphia goes from the world is against them. Zadarius Smith is retiring. Jalen Hurts can do no right, and then suddenly he goes up against Minnesota and can do no wrong.
158.3 maximum passer rating on the road at US Bank Stadium, and the Eagles get a win over Minnesota. Yeah.
And it's fun. This is the best thing about football, though, right?
Yeah.
Nobody saw Indianapolis coming. Nobody saw, I mean, to an extent, the New England Patriots coming. They're 5-2.
Right.
The Baltimore's 1-5.
That's the thing. The three teams right now, the 3 teams in the NFL that are on the longest current winning streaks, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Bears. Like, who would have said in the middle of October that the 3 longest active winning streaks in the NFL right now would be the Colts, Patriots, and Bears? But that's where incredible. We are.
Yeah, 4 wins in a row. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, football's fun, man. Oh, and then, by the way, the Green Bay Packers are going to Pittsburgh on Sunday. Sunday Night Football.
Sunday Night Football against
Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers.
Against the former quarterback here, the 4-time MVP, the future Hall of Famer, Aaron Rodgers. We got all that to talk about on our next show, but we got to call it a wrap on this show. So be sure to follow all of our coverage of the team on Packers.com all week long. Everything leading up to the showdown with the Steelers, we'll have it for you on our website. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.